Hey, I'm Kelli-Leigh. Welcome to another episode of my podcast, You Know My Voice. This week's guest is a singer and artist who has been streamed over 300 million times. Her voice is someone you would definitely know, Abi Flynn.
Hello, thanks for having me.
Welcome. Thank you so much for coming into You Know My Voice.
Yeah, it's amazing. I just couldn't believe how perfect this was that you were doing this. It's like, yeah,
I know
exactly what I knew.
I can't remember what it was. There was something on Instagram that something popped up and someone was like, you two really need to chat. And then I sort of slid into your DMs.
Yeah. And I was like, perfect timing as well. Just when I was looking to kind of find some way I could have the conversations and with other women in the music industry. So I love what you're doing.
Thank you so much. Yeah. So please, let's, before we get into the numbers and what people know you from, when did you start singing? What's your journey been?
I think a lot of singers probably say like my whole life.
Yeah.
I think professionally since about 15, I was in rock bands. I was like fronting rock bands from a really young age, living in Brighton. Then I was into soul and Motown, and then I became a jazz singer. Then I was signed to True Thoughts and did all the jazz, funk, soul circuit. So a really long eclectic career of all the genres.
Yeah, I saw you supported Soul to Soul and stuff like people like that.
When I was on True Thoughts, I used to do a lot of the soul legends, like the support acts for the big soul people like Parliament and Funkadelic. And
amazing.
Yes.
What was your favourite gig then?
Oh, I mean, definitely Parliament, Funkadelic, George Clinton was pretty wild. Like they have 50 people on stage and they're just doing mad things, and you get to stand at the side just being like, wow.
So how would you go out? Did you have a band?
So I originally used to sing for a lot of other people's bands. Like I think that was the thing. I was a bit of a vocal chameleon, and it was amazing. And there was a band called Jay Felix he was a producer with a band on True Thoughts, and I used to feature and sing for a lot of his stuff, which I know that you've had a journey with feature singing.
Yeah.
And that was great. And it took me a long time. Yeah, actually I had a journey with cancer in my 20s, which maybe we'll talk about a little bit, but that's kind of the moment that I decided to find my own voice. So, yeah.
So, I'm really sorry to hear about this, your cancer diagnosis. How did that, did something just hit you and you ended up ill? What was the journey of this?
I think I was at kind of at this weird stage of my life and career, which I think performers might be able to relate to, where you're just kind of living on stage, and I was gigging up to 8 times a week, and I just was big on the live scene. And I'd be singing down the beach in the daytime as well. I couldn't get enough. And then one day I kind of had this weird sense that I didn't have, I had felt really uncomfortable in my own skin. And I just had this sense that I didn't really have a sense of self-worth, and performing was where I found it. And almost as soon as I started to uncover this discomfort in my self-worth, I had a pain in my chest, and it just basically turned out to be a tumor in my chest, which was crazy. And I would be still gigging and coming off stage, and it's I just didn't know when to stop, and had a really big kind of journey of slowing down and eventually getting diagnosed with Hodgkin's lymphoma, which is a blood cancer. But then a lot of my journey with cancer was about, I wrote an album basically during cancer and recorded the vocal pack, which we'll probably talk about during cancer as well. So I almost carried on and did some of my most artistic things in that time, because it was facing that obviously huge diagnosis kind of gave me that wake up call to what's my voice, and what do I want to do, and what do I want to sing. And
mentally, how did you find that journey? Because, I can totally relate to you with that, with the go, go, go. I mean, it's nowhere near the same as what you've been through, but I had a car accident in 2013, and I had a severely prolapsed disc L5S1 and a fractured pelvis. I was on tour all over the place, and kind of like a workaholic, really, because you also feel as a singer, and especially if you come from maybe a working class background or something, you've just already got to fund everything that you're doing and the dream. So when people offer you gigs and shows, you're you gravitate towards it, because you're this, this is paying this bill, and this could probably meet me this person, and before you know it, you're so run down. I mean, I do believe stuff happens for a reason, and after my car accident, that's when I sang I Got You and I Want to Feel, and it sounds like you had a life-changing experience with your career when this happened. But mentally for me, I did find it really tough because I was so used to being so extremely on the go. I mean, like, how did you find that period of your life?
It definitely took me a while to slow. I think it really made me realize, like, the reason this had happened to me, from my own understanding, was I just felt like I felt so out of touch with my body and how to look after myself, how to love myself. I just had no idea. I was always trying to prove myself through my voice and using it, like almost objectifying my own talent.
Yeah.
And that was pretty crazy. And I just had it, I had it from the beginning that I knew I would heal, and probably my own way, which I did heal my own way in the end. And I actually wrote the album of music to kind of be my blueprint and my guide to carry me through. It was quite an uplifting album where I found, like, maybe like you said, in that adversity, that's kind of where I found my gifts and my sense of self-worth. And I just really had to go to a lot of dark places to realize I deserved to live and I deserved to thrive. And so my music was what carried me through. And then doing that vocal pack, I was actually, because I had a lot of cancer treatment before walking away from treatment and going my own way and doing a lot of emotional healing, but I did the vocal pack for Splice.
So how did that come about?
I think my friend, I was doing a lot of things when I had cancer. I was like literally selling out jazz cafe gigs, like pushing, as I was saying, at the beginning. And then my friend was like, can you just do the Splice pack? Or just can you do a few hooks for me just for like a bit of money and almost a favor? And she was making a Splice pack, and I didn't really know I didn't think she knew where it was going to go. It's actually Kate Wilde. She's a legend. She's amazing. And she started 91 Vocals. So I went round her house. I think I was literally like, I had a shaved head at the time and everything. And I honestly wrote 40 hooks in about 2 hours at home. And we just bashed through them. And I had so much fun. And then it wasn't until 4 years later that I got the call for anything happening of those after I'd been on a healing journey. But yeah.
So when you did these Splice vocals, did you know what you were doing? I mean, did you know what it entailed? Did you sort of know where your vocals were going, how they might be used, or you just weren't thinking, you were just like, I'm singing right now?
Yeah, it was like I was quite in a focusing on the moment, almost like slightly morbid, didn't know if I'd even be around, like much more in the future. It was really weird. I was given quite a bad diagnosis. So I was like kind of just doing everything that came along. I had this contract, but just skim read over it. And I thought, at the time I was just thinking, just for my friend, I'll do anything. It doesn't really matter.
Yeah.
And I didn't know about the dance. I mean, I never sang in the dance world. This is something else. I was always a jazz R&B singer, soul singer. So I didn't really know that whole world of publishing and songwriting.
Yeah.
And I just kind of didn't really need to know about it until 4 years later when I had the call. Then I had to like learn on my feet. And I had become a mother, so I healed from cancer, and I really had to slow down and put everything on hold. And I was told I was infertile, and then I actually got pregnant 8 weeks after my clear scan.
Wow!
So I was kind of like coming out of that period of like being a mother and putting it all down, and then I think he was 2 years old when I got the phone call, and it was like, okay, it was like Polydor or something, and I was like, okay, I need to learn the ropes now.
So what was the first song that went big off of your vocal pack?
It was Believe Me by Navos. So it was 2021. Obviously massive very quickly.
Yes. I think on Spotify that was like 150 million or something.
Yeah. It was. Yeah, I think it's like, I don't even know how much now. It's gone huge, and it's almost like one that's gone down in history that people will always remember. So, which is surreal.
To clarify, because you obviously wrote those, but you uploaded them to Splice, on those records, do you have publishing?
No, I sort of sold the rights of those to my friend who made the vocal pack. And I guess she had a deal with Splice, so... Right. Yeah.
So she retains publishing?
I don't think she does. No. I actually should have really got clear on that, but she was really clear, and I really honoured from day one, like the contract and everything. So I never tried, like in hindsight afterwards, now when I was doing anything new, I would always really fight for that. Yeah. And a lot of my frustrations in this journey has been about writing since those deals and still people not wanting to cut me in. Yeah. But with those, I kind of, Yeah, I didn't think about trying to get publishing, and I just wanted my name. I just wanted people to like, I understood that I wasn't going to be named on them, but once it kind of got out, I was hoping that I could get tagged down there, or
get some recognition.
Exactly,
for your
a bit
work.
of recognition. And I did manage to figure out PPL, which was really handy.
Yes.
So yeah, it's just learning on your feet once you're in that situation.
Yeah. I mean, how did it make you feel, sort of like coming from this journey that you've had, which has been really tough, and then having your voice blow up and be a staple in dance at that time that record dropped.
Plot twist.
but then not getting the recognition at the same time. Like,
it was bittersweet is like the perfect word for it, because I had this big album I'd written on my deathbed, which I thought, I was like, I'm going to heal cancer, I'm going to release this album, I'm going to be this phoenix and take over the soul world, and then I got pregnant and none of that happened. And so when the dance thing came out, when my little one was 2, and actually every single time by Bissett came out on the same day as Believe Me. So it was crazy.
That is crazy.
Yeah. When that happened, it was like amazing and sad, because my voice started to take off in ways I could never have imagined, which my ego of the past was like, woo. But then my album was just staying in the shadow, and it still is in the shadows, because I've had such a big journey with not being able to get paid and not being able to fund it, and such a big story of mine. And I've had a documentary being filmed for the whole time, which so I'm planning how I'm going to release it. But yeah, it was confusing. But then ever since I was a child, I've loved top lining. I used to listen to garage and like R&B and Mystique and Craig David and write top lines all day. That's what I would do. So I was like, okay, yeah, this makes sense. But
so let's interject there and talk about, before we continue, your inspirations then. If you could play one song right now that is something you listened to that inspired you from the garage scene, what would you choose?
I think someone asked me this the other day, and I said Fill Me In by Craig David, because I love him.
Yeah.
And then like Mystique, some of their like bangers like Why. I just love the like Craig David's melodic, bouncy, catchy, satisfying hooks. They're just my childhood, and makes me think of my brother driving around in like a convertible, pumping out these tunes. And I was really uncool and really insecure in school, but when we would go around in his car listening to UK garage, I was like the coolest kid in the world.
Yeah, absolutely. But also like Craig Davis runs on those records as well. It's just like, as a singer, it's what you're just like, oh yeah.
So satisfying.
So absolutely satisfying.
Yeah.
Okay, we've just been talking about Splice, and it's just quite fascinating, this Splice thing. Before Splice came about, actually, I had a friend who had this concept, and it was free vocals. And I'd uploaded my first EP I'd done in 2011 to their site, and just thought, okay, maybe it'd be cool. But their whole concept wasn't that it was free to download, but you couldn't utilize it. And you couldn't release it without then getting permission. So kind of like Splice before Splice came about, but not exactly Splice. So actually, to be fair, they had a brilliant plan. But I quickly just had loads of people downloading my vocals, using them in weird ways, putting them in it, like some of them clearly not musicians, putting my vocals in a completely different key to the key, and stuff that just sounds terrible, and then like atting me and it was just, so I had that experience quite early on of being like, actually this isn't for me. I don't want my voice to just be, everywhere and it's accessible like that. So how did, moving forward, if we fast forward, D.O.D, massive record. How did that feel for you, hearing yourself again after?
It lives on.
It lives on. And this same pack. Did you think at some point, like 2 questions here, like how did you feel about that one? And then did you feel like, actually, do you know what, could I take my vocal pack down? Because I don't want to keep having this situation arise. I mean, what were you?
Interesting. I never thought of that second one. But it was weirdly, I know, because you said about you did that experience earlier and kind of got it out of the way and realizing that's not how you wanted to do it. Yeah. And the weird thing with me was it was 4 or 5 years later that the pack even started to come out. So I'd already probably was someone who would never do a pack. So it was really crazy in the first instance. And then with D.O.D, I had got a publishing deal with Cobalt. So it had opened some doors, the vocal pack thing, which was amazing. But I was almost 2 years into the publishing deal, and I'd been working and writing in room after room after room. And again, this pattern from my earlier days of like maybe not listening and not honoring my worth and just kind of pushing, which is interesting because my whole journey with healing has been about loving myself and slowing down and coming into my body. But it's like the pattern reared again as soon as the dance world came.
Yeah.
And so when D.O.D came out, I was really, really, I loved the song. So it made me feel something. I was like, something really special about this song, like, because Believe Me is amazing as well. And it's kind of like really fun and funky. But I think the emotion in that one, and it felt like it captured the era when I wrote it and what I was going through.
Yeah.
So I was really happy it came out. I felt like it was quite blissful, like, oh wow, like I was in Ibiza like on holiday, and I just remember standing on a rooftop and I heard it, and I was like, it was like the sun was out, and I was like, whoa, it was magic.
And wait, had you been sent it, or you just heard it out?
I just heard it. It was crazy. Yeah.
Did you just hear like so much in love? You just heard your own voice coming back at you?
Yeah, I think that's what happened. Unless I'm wrong, and it was Spotify, and I played it on a speed, but it was it just like came out the blue. I had no idea it had been made or anything. So initially, I was really happy, and then it started to bring up those feelings again of like, oh man. I think if it hadn't have been for the fact I've been working and working and working, but not getting any new cuts, and I've had some releases, but no major cuts. No, my name just hasn't been put on anything really. It will be soon, but and I just, the bigger it got, and the more I kept seeing the posts of like, we've hit this much, we've done it, all the parties, but not being mentioned. And the journey that I'd been on to get here, it just at that point just felt like, it was almost like I have a very unbreakable spirit as someone who had cancer and like healed myself, and like I take the challenges and I make them something positive. That's what I do. It was almost like that broke my spirit for a minute. Like when it got into the charts, like there was a moment I put out a video on Instagram, a live, and I was just crying, and I was like, I couldn't pay rent that month, and I'd had the worst PPL PRS that I'd ever had, and I didn't know what I was going to do. I thought I was going to lose my house, and yet this song was just like everywhere. Yeah, and I just think it's like the DJs, you know, it's like they're part of a bigger system that doesn't want to name you as well, and I don't want to pinpoint any individuals, but it's like they could, if they chose to name you, they could change everything.
But I mean, it literally doesn't take away to just put an at. Because I mean, you know, there's this, you know, part of the discussion is, you know, there was a choice made and you did a vocal pack and it went online. You didn't know what that meant. Yeah. Like we all, you know, I sang I Got You and I Want to Feel, Cry Just a Little. They were all session jobs. I did not know what that meant until it happened, and was like, right, what does this mean? So we learn on our feet. Yeah. But then it really doesn't take anything for that person to be like, do you know what? Thanks so much. You know, because it's this vocal hook which everybody sings back, which they drop. I mean, for me, you were the voice of ADE, and this was before I connected you to those records. Like, you know, James Hype, Rewire, like everyone was playing So Much in Love. It's such a massive record, and like you know, and D.O.D is an amazing producer. That is an amazing record. I love that record.
Yeah, he's great.
But just to have an Abi Flynn, like, thank you for this incredible vocal.
Yeah,
like,
I think he did it in one post, and I was so grateful for that. Yeah, and that was like the first that anyone had done.
That's amazing.
But then it's just like,
because it's so important, and I think this is the reason also for this podcast is because there does seem to be this level of disrespect towards vocals.
It's very normalised.
Yeah, and it's very normalised, and it's like I don't know why, because key there is what you're saying. You're going, you know, I didn't know if I was going to be able to make my, you know,
that juxtaposition.
And that's also why you go, no, I have to speak up. I mean, I remember the day specifically when I decided I'm now going to speak up about I Got You, because I got asked not to mention that I sang that record because it didn't want to detract from Duke Dumont's journey at the time, and Jack's, because he was featured.
This is the thing. What a twisted way to look at it.
You know, and then and I was recovering from my car crash deal. I couldn't do my gigs I usually did because I was still like, I wasn't able to walk very far. I wasn't able to stand for very long. And same thing, I was like, I got to pay my rent. Like, I can't do what I'm usually doing, which is doing a gig here or, BVs there or whatever I'm doing. And I had to just take it upon myself that moment to make that phone call to management at the time and just be like, listen, I've been offered PAs. And at that point, I think it'd been like 4 months since the record had been out, and it was everywhere. My voice was everywhere. And the same, I was just not being paid. I wasn't being noticed. I wasn't being spoken about. And I was like, you suddenly realise there comes a point in this industry where you have to just look out for yourself, because that's what everybody else is doing.
Exactly, yeah.
And you kind of wish it would be a bit more, hey, thanks so much for your contribution.
Win-win.
Yes, but,
it's got a way to go.
It's got a way to go. And people should know that, those were your vocals on those records, you know. Unfortunately, there is no publishing with Splice, but the rooms that you've been in, that you've got those hooks for days.
Yeah, exactly. And I think it's interesting. It's the way you carry yourself. And you're right about that moment where you were like, well, I need to look out for me.
Yeah.
Because I am worth the success that that vocals are getting. And I think it was that switch. Like, my spirit got broke. I said what I said online. I had loads of people messaging me, and that showed me, actually, like, I am worthy and people do care. And that's when I came up with the idea to, like, kind of work a bit smarter and not harder. And I started saying no to a lot of sessions and only doing the ones I loved. And then my friend Bobby Harvey and I is an amazing producer.
Yeah, Bobby's really sweet.
He's lovely.
Big up Bobby Harvey.
Big up Bobby. He's literally like no one like him. And we started to make our own vocal pack, but for splits, for royalties. Mm-hmm. And it was on our terms, because him as a songwriter too gets, screwed over a lot and just like not really taken seriously. So we wrote all these hooks and he's produced them so nicely. And we put them all on a nice little link and everything. And now it's on our terms and producers are like kind of making different versions and we get to choose what goes out. And that was a really empowering experience and it's been so fun. So you start to find your tribe and the people you write with.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Owen Segala has been so amazing. I mean, I really want to give him some love because like, look what he did for Becky. He named her, I think he was the first one to name her. And I just came across him on Instagram, I think. And I'd known about Scala for ages, but I messaged him and he's just kind of had me in a bunch of sessions and
I love that.
He really sees what I do and I think he shines a light on a lot of people and it's those people. Too. Yeah.
I mean, this is also really important. It is to talk about those that, support and do champion as well, because I mean, that's it. It's just someone just going, hey, let's do this together, or hey, I'm going to bring you into a room, or, you've got this. I know Ferric Dawn for me was the first one I sang Love Too Deep, and he was the first one online going, Kelli-Leigh sung this record, because it went, I Got You, I Want to Feel, and then Love Too Deep went top 40. And he was out there going, why is no one saying she's just sang all these records?
Yeah.
I remember a key day where I was, this was a couple of years later, but I'd sung a record for a Brazilian artist. And when the record was coming out, obviously tried to put it out with no contract. My lawyer got very involved. And then when they were posting it, they posted on Instagram, so excited for this record to drop with the singer from @Dukemont @Second City, and went out of their way to
Oh no!
Yeah, but not mention my name. I was like,
that's even worse.
I know, it's just see people are crazy. So like hearing, Bobby and Segala and just
Shaq as well as another. There's a few people that are like changing the narrative. I feel.
Yes,
they're like, what? And Bad Boy Chiller Crew, like they've been amazing. They were like, we really want to get you on this, Abi. Like you're a legend, and they have loads of people feature, and they love it. It's like the more you can share the love, the more the record wins.
And I mean, exactly. That's the whole thing. And also it makes the good vibes and the energy, because the thing is with our business is just everybody knows everybody, and just that reputation sort of precedes. And I get some of the coolness of like, I don't want to put that person's name on it, or it's about me, or blah 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 blah.
Yeah.
But I'm not sure for the fan base it necessarily takes away. I don't think saying this was sung by someone, or this person produced it, or this person wrote it, because I know sometimes there's writers talk about massive artists that take publishing, they didn't write anything. I mean, like, it's just like, I don't get why, because I'm pretty confident a fan of the song is still going to be a fan of the song and not go, oh, I don't like this because they named the singer.
Yeah,
you know,
it's the opposite in my experience. Like the fans love it.
Yeah.
It gives us a personal and a narrative.
Yeah.
I think it's part of a bigger issue that's like, which is the patriarchy, which isn't, and I don't even mean that as something men do to women. I mean like the system we all live in, where we all lose, where we pedestal, I don't know, like doing and pushing and like this egocentric way of being over just honesty and connection and vulnerability and humanness and like sharing the love. It's so interesting how deep we're all indoctrinated, and the music industry, of course, is one of the biggest for thinking they need to like pedestal. It's like the pedestal and then the person down here. And it's like haven't quite unlocked the win-win thing is actually really infectious, and people love it. And you don't have to pretend or make someone out to be this thing and hide the others. It's like just it's like an escaping from something. I don't know what it is, but it's a weird mentality that even people don't know it's there and they're still operating it.
Yeah.
Really weird.
I think I'm noticing that more people are trying to discover and find out who are involved in the records now.
Yeah.
And I have noticed, I mean, it's not great yet, but I think there is more notice of supporting the vocals and dance records and the women involved in it. Have you noticed things shifting a bit, or for you has it still been quite, you know, in the dark? How do you feel? Do you see any progress?
I think in the last year I've noticed a difference. I don't know whether it's probably both, but obviously I've had a shift in myself. Kind of interestingly, I just released my first self-release, and it's called My Own Woman.
Nice.
And that's the journey I've taken, like reclaiming my self-worth. It's how I healed, I believe, like a big part of how I healed cancer, and it's how I'm healing this situation in the dance world. And I've noticed when I've done that, suddenly all these actually women are in my field, and I'm speaking to like amazing other female artists and top liners. And then I'm carrying myself in a way that's like, I only want to work with people that I really love and who I feel respect me.
Yes.
So then like people like Shaq and Sigala and Bad Boy Chiller Crew and new people are coming along who every session is just like amazing. And I'm like, something has shifted. I don't know if it's just in me or if it's in the collective or if it's both, but suddenly I'm not having to prove myself as much. And it's almost like the conversations have been happening, and people, this is what happens, like obviously mass thinking. If we've normalized a certain way of treating women and singers and dance, and suddenly these new conversations are happening that are creating new pathways, and people are thinking twice, like, okay, no, like actually, like we do credit people like that now. I don't know what it is. It's changed. Like the attitude is shifting, and you know, you're making things like this, so clearly,
I think it's also just getting to a point where you had enough and you speak out and you just like, and I think you can't shut down, you know, if we stay silent, you constantly stay silent. And it's also a point of allowing, I think. Yeah. And you get to a point where I'm not going to allow this anymore. And if this means that certain people don't want to work with me because I'm speaking my truth, then so be it. But my truth is what's going to have me at peace. And like you said, like the healing that you've been through, you know, I've had to come through my own journey of like low self-esteem and stuff. But, you know, knowing I had to sort of like strong it up in the room, but still feeling completely insecure. Yes. And you just get to a point, and we'll always have those moments. It's the music industry. You have up days, down days. But just also just having that foundation of knowing I am good enough. I am good at what I do. You know, one day a song's going to work, the next day it's not. But putting out, that's why I put out songs for myself, was just to have my own voice. And, you know, and that's for you with My Own Woman, which is an excellent title.
Thank you. Yeah.
Is that independent?
It is a self-release. And because I've got this massive album and cancer journey that I've not released, it felt so polarized from the dance stuff. And I wanted to go on a journey where I brought those worlds together with some R&B, you know, marry the soul and the dance. And then I will release my album next year. So it's been powerful. But it really has been a journey. It's like we all are on a journey to deconstruct this kind of crazy conditioning of pushing ourselves and escaping our own bodies and our intuition. And I think the more I've done that, the more my career is starting to reflect that, and the music's starting to reflect that, and the people I'm working with. And and it's just, it gives permission. You doing this podcast, you speaking up, suddenly like it ripples out, doesn't it, when we start to make those speak up and make those changes for ourselves.
Yes, it's so important.
Yeah.
Would you recommend Splice? Would you do Splice again? Put your vocals
I wouldn't
up
do
there?
it again. I think it's a real blessing. It's been a frustrating thing, but if I hadn't have done it, I never would have had all these doors opened. And I'm really grateful for the whole journey, really. Like now being in this position where I've like really learned on my feet, learned the ropes, had to get so independent about the business and how it all works. Like I totally understand why anyone would do it. Then having seen the situations possible, I'm like, I'm going to do it for myself now. Like if I could, because it's weird that I think you and I might be a rare kind of niche where we've had multiple hits from those kind of things. You might have one it's been a real lesson.
So where can people listen to your album, hear My Own Woman, and follow your journey?
Well, it's out everywhere. My Own Woman is out on just all usual platforms, and I've got like 2 or 3 more singles of that nature to follow. And my album has been a massive thing. I had Arts Council funding, and I've got big plans for a stage show, so that'll be later next year. And if you can find me at Abi the Singer, which is at Abi the Singer, ABI the Singer on Instagram and Facebook and all the usual places.
Perfect. Thank you so much for coming on, being my guest, talking about your incredible journey, your absolute strength and bravery. You're a really powerful woman.
Thank you.
And I hope next year your name's going to be in Lights, girl.
Yeah, it's the year.
It's the year.
Thank you.